How's it going, everyone? Baldy Jack here with the one and only Christian Hanna. How are you doing, Christian?
What's going on, brother? It's going well. Finally got off of a long stretch of work, and I'm excited to talk about Saturday the 14th.
All right. So today, as most of you clicked on this video, it says the world of collecting Friday the 13th, and we're just gonna go free stance, talk about whatever. The Friday 13th, the world of collecting this franchise, it's so diverse. There's a catalog of various things, whether it's action figures, statues, plushes, dolls, hockey masks, comic books, trading cards, lunch boxes, t-shirts, physical media, posters. The list goes on. So, it's just a wide one. So, Christian, I'm going to ask you probably the most blatant and obvious question. How did you start collecting Friday the 13th?
Well, I tell this story so often, but I have to tell it again because it truly is the catalyst for everything. In high school, I got bit by the horror bug after a trip to Spirit Halloween. Went home, asked my mom to bring home a Nightmare movie to rent, fell in love with Nightmare 2. And subsequently, after watching those films, my mom started renting me the Friday the 13th. Started renting those, fell in love with it. I knew I was watching horror greatness right then and there. Obviously, I had always known who Jason was because the character is bigger than the franchise itself, really. And I think what started happening was I started buying the movies, the physical releases on DVD, right? I started getting those collector's edition DVDs, and I was getting so much enjoyment out of that. And I would go to Toys R Us and I would see these really cool figures of Jason and stuff. And I was like, oh, well, wouldn't that be cool to just, get one of those NECA? And it was those skinny boxes, the skinny NECA boxes and those really hard cases that they were like anti-theft proof. Like you couldn't rip them open easy. And they were kind of reddish and they all kind of had a similar look. And I remember getting a part 3 Jason and I was like, this is great. I love this. And the packaging was all really cool for it. I just dug all the fonts that they used for Friday the 13th and all that. And I think it started right there and then with NECA. But I mean, the movies themselves came first, but then I was like, oh, there's a whole world out there. There's NECA and Mezco and Diamond Select and Sideshow Collectibles and, what have you. So when I noticed the stuff at when I noticed the stuff at Toys R Us, I was like, oh, there's a whole world of horror collecting out there. And NECA really opened up a door for me to really explore what all was out there.
So, okay, I found that really fascinating. So for you, it opened up with NECA. To kind of tread back, I ain't that old, but for me, it started with Mezco and their Cinema Fear line. This stuff was available like back in Spencer's and Hot Topic. You'd walk in and find a little collectible aisle where you see this this figure of Jason from part 4. Jason Lives, Jason Goes to Hell. Part 3. They weren't the most outstanding things in the world back then. They were. Nowadays they're just very stylized and dated looking. But there's a heart and basically I want to say like this crap. What do I want to say? There's just a fond memory for those figures.
Right.
And for me, for your case, you rented the movies. You got bit, like you said, you got bit by the horror bug at going to Spirit Halloween, which I find that quite fascinating because, Spirit Halloween is such a wide thing known nowadays.
Yeah. They've been around for a while, though. People need to realize, Spirit Halloween has been around for quite some time.
Yeah, I believe they were founded in, the late 80s. They've been around for a long time. And keep in mind, Spencer's was the thing that created Spirit. So I just always found that to be kind of cool. That a little gift shop said, hey, let's make Halloween this big, wide store. It's, larger than life. For me, with the films, it started fun story. My father, since I had an older sister, he used horror films and things like Jason to scare her. In my case, it did the polar opposite, and I became a fan of it. So I saw things like Halloween 78 and Friday the 13th as at the age of 4. Going to places like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video and renting these things and just getting a total kick and fun out of it. Meanwhile, you have, relatives or, aunts that are saying, this kid's going to grow up to be a serial killer. Yeah. So, obviously that wasn't the case. So, now I want to point this out, since I'm not sure if you know what your very first thing that you ever bought that was Jason related. I want to know what that was. I'm just really curious. So go ahead.
The first thing I ever bought that was Jason related, I mean, I'm sure growing up, I was getting like those cheap Walgreens hockey masks for Halloween and stuff like that. It's funny. I want to make sure this is known as well, because I'm a little bit older than you, but like in the same vein, like I remember seeing all those legendary Mezco Cinema Affair pieces and stuff, and those bigger 18-inch figures at I don't recall seeing a Jason one per se. I recall seeing a Leatherface, 18-inch Leatherface at Spencer's, but I recall seeing the really cool horror related stuff there, but I just wasn't into it yet. But I'm trying to think, like really think back, like besides the movies, beforehand, it would probably, I can recall being Jason for Halloween one year. Again, this is before I even knew the term Friday the 13th, because it was just, I just knew Jason, right? Wearing those cheap hockey masks that had like the 2 eye holes and like 2 little holes around the mouth to breathe. Like obviously very, very cheap. That had to have been it. There's no way I wasn't Jason at least one year. I'm sure I was. I can recall one where I think I was Jason. So that was probably as far back as I could probably go with it.
For me, I know that with the physical media, I think the first thing I ever got was the Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set. And this was like back in, God, I don't know, 2006, 2007. But as far as action figures, the first thing I recall, I don't have it to this day anymore, because as a child, of course, you break things, so they don't live to see another day. I remember it was a bleak spring in 2007. I went to the local mall at Spencer's. It was this hunchback, stylized looking Jason. It looked like a cross between like Part 4 and Freddy vs. Jason. It was a really weird, like it didn't resemble a Jason from one particular film. It was just this emogulation that Mezco Toys came up with. And the only thing I think that I have that's remaining from that figure is the severed head that he came with. And it's especially if I tried to find that figure nowadays, it's just rare. It probably goes for almost $100 on eBay at this point. So it's just one of those things, collecting figures like that at the age that I was, being 7, 8, 9 years old, who would think a kid that age would have something like that? Like, that's not normal to do,
No, you're an anomaly in that you were getting into it so young from the merchandising standpoint. I don't think I've ever met anybody that's been like that before.
Like that. Yeah, because in my case, it started with liking the movies, and then you just like question, like, obviously being so young, your brain's not fully developed, but just walking into a store like that and seeing like, oh, look, a Jason doll or a Jason figure or this or that, and it's like I gotta have this. So like there's some of those things that I got back from Hot Topic and Spencer's back in those early mid 2000s that some of them I still have to this date, which is kind of insane because back then they didn't become as valuable as they are nowadays. For a lot of people, the Mezco Jason Goes to Hell figure, that thing goes for almost a couple hundred. It's ridiculous, especially when you consider that back then it was like a $20, $30 figure. Let me ask you this: so whether it's the figures, the busts that you've acquired over the years, what would you consider your most prized Friday the 13th item that you own in hand? If you only had to pick one item to keep for the rest of your life, or just if you just had only one item to pick, what would that be?
I think you know me well enough to know that my Jason Takes Manhattan Devil's Latex bust is a favorite of mine. I have such a love for that movie, and it just warms my heart when I hear the three words Jason Takes Manhattan, and I love that look, and I just love the look of that bust, and that I have so many good memories with that movie to begin with. So, it's just one of those charming, comforting movies that I can throw on at any time. So that movie, whether it be the movie, the look of Jason, all of it. It's hard to put it into words, but I think you understand because I think you feel the same way. But that Jason Takes Manhattan bust, man, like that's my baby. Every time I get a new bust, me and you talk, and I'm like, dude, I think this one might rival it. And but you're like, yeah, but then like a few days later, it's like, you know what though, that Jason Takes Manhattan's still the best. So
Yeah, in our world, for those of you watching, yeah, Jason Takes Manhattan is just king. He's kind of the what we like to call the leader of the rest of the Jasons, because it's the thing with Part 8, it may not be the most high point of the franchise. It can be a low point, but there's so many things about it that you're drawn to it. That late 80s feel. There's a certain vibe to Part 8 that film has that the other ones don't. If you know what I mean.
yeah,
Um, the thing with the look of Jason from Part 8, because we come off of such a high end design from Part 7, Part 8 is kind of a more sleek Jason. He's kind of one of those Jasons that is very sneaky. He makes his way around magically. He kind of just walks on water almost, per se.
he teleports. He he gets around. He gets around.
Yeah, especially the hockey mask. You can't go wrong with that. It's very unique, especially the bottom chevron placement. The mask is such a bright, vibrant yellow, and it's a much wider hockey mask. So I feel like that's another reason for the drawing point behind that Jason. So, all right. So in my case, prized possession. That is a tough one because it's always tough to pick one item. But if I have to call back and just have to point out one particular thing, it's the big man that's right behind me, the Jemmy animatronic life-size Jason.
Original release Jemmy animatronic.
Yes, this guy. It's kind of insane thinking about it, because imagining waking up the day after Halloween, November 1st, 2008. This Jason, this guy's just standing in that room, and you have that most like frozen, shocked moment of your life, and then you just feel giddy afterwards. The crazy story behind this guy is he was a display model at a Spirit Halloween that was such a small and condensed store.
Yeah.
That my father went there, November 1st when they opened at 10 a.m. or whatever, and he went there to get it because it was 50% off. It was $125, and I find it quite hilarious because there was a guy that came in the store after him that was gonna buy it. So he got there at the nick of time. So, it's just, to me, it's just one of those prized possessions because it has a story behind it. And I realized that what makes collecting so special is there's a story to tell with each and every item you own. And it just reminds you of what I would like to call a past life. And there's just something to treasure about that.
Oh, yeah.
As a collector, if there's anything you ever need to, I want to say learn, is to appreciate what you have, because I feel like that's something as a. I know I'm going very, very, very dynamic on this. That we as humans, we take things for granted. So you always want to appreciate things like this, those little things that kind of make a big thing, or just they mean something, to you as a person.
Definitely.
So, with that out of the way, let me tell you this, Christian, because you've been collecting, since as early as high school in your sense, or around there. What are some of the things you would say to people that are either getting into collecting Friday the 13th or have been, but you want to give them advice per se? what was something you would say?
You know, it's interesting with Friday the 13th because we're in uncharted territory right now with everything going on lawsuit wise.
Hmm.
I would say don't hesitate, quite frankly, because you know, and quite frankly, just appreciate it when it's available. Like for instance, the Friday the 13th game when it came out, it was a massive success. I don't think anybody involved, quite frankly, much less Paramount, uh, were expecting it to be what it was. They gave permission to do this. They gave permission to do that. Oh my God, how many sales did we have of this game? How many people are playing this game? And then, of course, when the lawsuit happened, the game stopped production in terms of new content. You can still play the game, and I still recommend playing the game. It's addicting and fun to play. In terms of collecting, I would say right now is the absolute best time to be not only a horror fan collector, but a horror movie collector, but a Friday the 13th collector, because Jason is the most marketable of all the franchises. Because when I go to Walgreens during Halloween, you guarantee you're going to see a hockey mask on the shelf. When you go to Spirit Halloween, you guarantee there's going to be a Jason section, as you know, Baldy.
Hmm.
When you go to Target, you're going to see Jason NECAs.
Yep.
You have a lot of, you have a lot of variety,
Yep.
and but at the same time, with all this lawsuit stuff going on right now, it's hard to say what could happen. I don't think merchandise would be affected so much, but if you see it and you can get it, especially
Get it.
retail, go for it. And not only that, because you got to understand this too for the people listening that are getting into Friday the 13th now. Friday the 13th is the most collectible franchise in the world. So when you find something older you want, boy, oh boy, you will be heartbroken when you go on eBay because you're going to
Yeah.
pay. For instance, there's a old video format that's called Laserdisc, and I started collecting those about 11 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. And when I got into that, I had subsequently become a huge Friday the 13th fan. Well, if I were to try to buy those Friday the 13th laser discs today, I would be broke because it would cost
Yeah.
me
It
a lot of money.
cost you an arm and a leg.
I've been fortunate to have gotten them when I got them, and I even have a couple Japanese, if memory serves. No, I have a Japanese Jason Takes Manhattan, of course. And also to check your used video stores, because you never know what you'll find, and you'll always find the best stuff when you're not looking for it, even though I'm telling you to go there to look for it, which kind of sounds silly. But I went into it's a retail place called Game Exchange. They're pretty popular around the southern region of the United States, and I'm sure they have you know similar stores around. Basically, it's stores where you can get used video games, and they have massive video sections, DVDs, Blu-rays. I found the Crystal Lake to Manhattan set there, which is, as Baldy said, I think it's from the early 2000s. And it's a really nice little set, Crystal Lake to Manhattan set. It's got some charming little old vignettes for the films, and it's collectible. I mean, if you're a Friday the 13th fan, it's fun. So that's a staple in the collections of the Friday the 13th fans, the Crystal Lake to Manhattan set. And I found that there, and I could go on eBay and pay more money for it. I'm sure it probably cost me at least $40, maybe more. I've never really looked at it if I just had to guess, but I got it for like $16 used box set. It's in pretty good condition. It's not in great condition, but it's old. So what do you expect? So,
Yeah.
honestly, it's not so much advice I would give, but to just really just, uh, enjoy the time, because man, there is so much great stuff to be had with Friday the 13th right now. And not to mention, if you're a fan of Friday the 13th clothes, I mean, good God, you can get a Friday the 13th shirt sometimes at Walmart, but you've got your Gutter Garbs, Cavity Colors, Terror Threads, multiple big t-shirt companies, Fright Rags. They're always doing Friday the 13th shirts for specific entries all the time. You want a Part 4 shirt? No problem. Part 7 shirt? No problem. You want a Jason Takes Manhattan shirt? No problem. Not to mention Hot Topic has Friday the 13th shirts now. So really, I mean, Baldy, like the sky's the limit. It's not so much advice I have, but to just cherish the time, because it's really great. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so diverse. I mean, it's funny that you bring up the physical copies, because I have those really silly those individual releases with some of them that have like the shitty artwork. Part 5, part 6, where it's just kind of the hockey mask laying there, but it's in the woods and it's very simplistic and generic looking. Um, Usually in my case, the thing I mostly tell people as far as collecting, because as I've said beforehand, it's so diverse. There's so many things out there that you could find. I mean, for crying out loud, you have an
Don't get me started on that thing, man. I'm so aggravated. Let me just say this really quick, okay? NECA, nothing Friday the 13th related should ever be Comic Con exclusive. There's way too big of a market. What are you
yeah.
doing? I want that Pamela bad, and I'm not paying hundreds of dollars for it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm grabbing off camera here, and this thing. It's a pain in the it's a pain in the arse to get a hold of, because nowadays on eBay, you got people asking ridiculous amounts up to $500. And I know a guy that actually paid $500. Shout out to Steven at Nightmare Toys, but it's ridiculous. And this was, a convention exclusive, yes, to Comic Con in I think 2015, and this was what, just before Betsy Palmer passed away, I think.
I think so.
But anyway, yeah, it's ridiculous that something like this, because that's the thing I realize as far as the character of Pamela Voorhees. There's not much out there as far as action figures or much. You have that 7-inch release from NECA that was like the 25th anniversary. Yes, you have the retro cloth Pamela, and then there's I think the sideshow, and that's it. Well, of course, the Part 3 Undead version that they released, but you always got to respect the killer of Pamela Voorhees, because I feel like some people kind of just throw her under the bus and say Jason, Jason, Jason.
Yeah.
It's something that people don't really appreciate. So, yes, in my case, like I said, you don't want to overpay for things, because it costs you an arm and a leg. Like, sure, if you have the money and you can afford it, go for it. Like for instance, the Sideshow collectible figures. I say the fairest price to go for one of them would be no more than $200. That would be the limit. But then other times you'll see listings on eBay where someone's trying to sell one of the Sideshow collectible figures for upwards to almost $400, and maybe say it's like signed by someone like Ted White or Kane Hodder, but it's like a little extreme.
Yeah.
And so let's see. Let me ask you this, Christian. Would you prefer quality items over what I would like to say is trinkets?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at my collection now, I'm a really big fan of getting the higher end
Items.
Yeah, higher end, especially the replica busts, as they're called, props. You can really get quite a collection fast of cheaper items that just there's nothing wrong with that. I love buying anything Friday the 13th, quite frankly. What's funny is what I've really got into lately is just non-typical items, like, can openers.
Oh yeah.
Or
household items almost.
Magnets or mugs. I'm a mug thug. I'll tell y'all right now, I am a mug thug. I just made that up on the spot. I love mugs. I drink out of mugs for damn near everything. And nothing warms my heart more when I find a new Friday the 13th related mug. I went shopping one Sunday and I vlogged it, and I got this really beautiful Camp Crystal Lake mug from Books A Million, and it shows the camp. I love that. Like, that's what gets me excited now, because I've got pretty much every Jason bust I could ever want. Besides, let's say I've got my 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Jason Goes to Hell. I mean, I would love a Uber Jason, but like other than that, like I'm really happy with my busts. They're all beautiful, gorgeous, high-end pieces. And so at this point, like I love getting t-shirts. I love getting mugs. Um, but in terms of what do I prefer, I mean, I guess higher end stuff because even though you buy it less frequently, your jaw drops when you get something as nice as like that Jason Goes to Hell bus, which was the last one I got. Man, I was
Hmm.
in shock at how nice it was. You
Yeah,
know,
it's a work of art.
yeah, it is. It is. But then again, the Mezco's mega scales that they've done, like I would love for them to do another Jason because I really like those, and those aren't the cheapest. They retail from
About a
anywhere
hundred
from
bucks.
yeah, from around
About.
depending on what sites you go to, you could find them between 80 and 100. They've done a Jason. They certainly need to do another Jason. I think the part 2 would be ripe for a great design. Put the
Oh yeah.
bag, because they did Sam and he has the bag over his head removable. You could easily do that with a part 2 Jason. That would be great. Or give us Roy Burns. He's got a fan base by this point. So, um, yeah, more of the higher end stuff is what I'm into.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the fact that you brought up a mega scale like part two Jason, they have done a Living Dead doll Jason, and to be honest, I'm not fond of the Living Dead dolls lore that they do. I know in the past they've done a reboot Living Dead doll Jason, and they did a part three, but for some stupid reason they decided to make that a Comic Con exclusive. So that thing is very hard to find, especially nowadays. Um, So what I would say is, as much as I do love, the NECA figures because they're very affordable. They're $30 figures. They're not something too extreme. Um, but at some point in time, I would like to get a couple higher quality things like a pre-Uber Jason hockey mask, whether it's from Oz or Can't Curse Studios. Those guys do some pretty good replica hockey masks. Um,
We should probably mention that too, Baldy. The independent stuff that you can get that's not licensed from Paramount or New Line, like
oh yeah,
yeah, the Devil's Latex is like the place to go if you want to get a nice Jason Voorhees bust. Devil's Latex is probably the best. Scareware is great, but he doesn't take orders. He just makes stuff and then sells it. Um, and then there's Fear of the Dark Studios, which is where I got my Jason Goes to Hell, and that thing's a juggernaut. But you got to understand, guys, if you're interested in that stuff, the price point's not cheap. We're talking anywhere between 200 to about 350. But what you're getting is not a, you're not getting a latex mask in a box. You get what you pay for. And these replicas, if you get one, you'll be like, oh my God, I could never go back. Every detail is insane. You actually have like gunk dripping off of him. He's completely foam filled. And that thing, you just sit it down and it looks amazing. And then I actually got my hockey mask from Pizzal, who has gotten into the hockey mask game as well. But if you just want to get the hockey mask, that's a cheaper route to go, and you can get some really great stuff at decent price points as well, hockey masks wise. So I just wanted to make sure people understood that. Like, it's not a cheap venture. It took me a long time to get into that kind of thing, but boy, oh boy, every time I walk into this room, I'm taken aback by how gorgeous these things are.
yeah. It's like it's what I would like to call it's eye catching. It's the first thing your eyes are drawn to because it's so outstanding. Um, and you're right that with most cases with individual artists, these guys are doing wonderful, great things. Like sure, they're yeah, they're made to order that you got to wait a time frame, to receive the thing because they're pretty much you're paying for them to make the item, of course. Uh, so it's great. You have a guy I found out about goes by the name Custom Freaks, and this guy it's spelled Freeks. He spells it weird. Anyway, he does 7-inch scale hockey masks for figures. Say if you have a NECA figure and you don't like the way the mask looks on the figure, this guy does things that are almost screen accurate.
The talent pool is incredible, and the stuff that people are doing out there is jaw dropping. I mean, you have to see this stuff. Go. If you're listening to this and you haven't followed, Devil's Latex on Instagram, go give him a like, and you will want to spend thousands of dollars on first glance.
I guess I'll put it this way, Christian. If there's anything that you want to show off to folks, go right ahead. most people that watch my channel, they kind of know the things that I own. So if there's anything you want to pull out in particular, go right ahead.
All right, so I'll show this. Like, one thing I love is magazines. And if you look right here on my screen, here is a Gore Zone magazine from 1988, and this is autographed by Kane Hodder. And I got that for like $20 on eBay about 10 years ago.
Wow.
And that's really cool. It's got part 7. Then I have this one magazine. It's called Slaughterhouse Magazine. Now, I don't think that this magazine lasted at all very long. And this is for Jason Takes Manhattan. Now, Baldy, I know you can't see this right now, but you will when you edit this. I guarantee you've seen this magazine online before or images of it, and it's really cool. I love it so much. And I have another Jason Takes Manhattan magazine. This is from Horror Video, but it says it's a Fangoria Presents. So it's like a special thing, and this is the 1990 horror movie guide. And on the front, it's got Jason Takes Manhattan, and then it's got Child's Play, Dream Child, Freddy, and then Hellraiser Bloodlines, Pinhead, Hellraiser Hellbound, not Bloodlines, excuse me. So those are cool. So magazines is another thing I think Baldy knows as well. Like I just wanted to show that real quick that I'm a really big fan of, and I love vintage old magazines because it's really interesting to go back and read, whether it be predictions, uh, the way people thought about those films at that time when they were still in the thick of it, so to speak, as opposed to what happens to movies over time. Sometimes they get really bigger and better reputations. So I just wanted to show that. But of all three of these, the Slaughterhouse magazine, this thing is awesome. I've had this for a long time. And like I said, I don't think that this magazine had more than like 5 or 6 releases. It was very, very short lived. And this is probably the most famous one that they did with the Jason Takes Manhattan on the front of it. So yeah, I just wanted to show that real quick.
Yeah, that's another thing. Magazines, I never really super got into horror magazines. Um, there was this. I know of like Horrorhound and Fangoria and whatnot, um, which I always thought was kind of cool with the Horrorhound stuff, where they'll be showing you things that would be releasing at this point in time or this month or this or that, just to kind of informate the reader on, like, oh yeah, if you want this particular Blu-ray for this film, or this particular statue or this or that, it'll be out at this point in time. And I always just found that a little kind of cool, just like as a heads up, like, hey, if you haven't heard about this, you're hearing about it now.
Yeah.
So I would like to end this off with, like, what are your hopes or things you would like to see in the future, as far as from in the world of Friday the 13th, like whether it's like a dream Jason item, or just you know it's pretty obvious that I was gonna say this, but an ultimate Jason from Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason from this film is the only thing that hasn't been a what do you want to call it, a licensed figure. You have customs out there, but there's never been a licensed Jason from Part 8. So that's one of my hopes that we can see one day.
Right. It's so interesting that Roy got the special treatment before Takes Manhattan did. I'm not surprised by it per se, but when it did happen, I was like, oh wow, Roy's getting a push. Um, of course, the Jason Takes Manhattan NECA, either style, you could do it retro or ultimate. I don't care. I would prefer the I Love New York box if they do a ultimate. But again, I'll take the theatrical poster as well because it's a great looking poster. I wouldn't mind. It's a good question actually. I'm trying to think because they've done a lot of stuff. I would like to see some more 18-inch figures come out too, because those are really cool. So yeah, some stuff like that. Some decent some better middle priced
Yeah.
items is what I would like to see, because we got our cheap stuff, our NECAs and stuff. I would like to see more options around that middle priced scale, because it's really a dead market now. It's just figures, lower tier figure, not lower tier in terms of
Which is
quality,
simple.
but lower priced. So I would like to see a resurrection in that middle grade, that $50 to $100 price point for Friday the 13th, to come kind of get back and swing a little bit.
Um, that's something I realize. Trick or Treat Studios, they have, the license to things like Elm Street, Halloween, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm surprised they haven't had the interest yet in getting the rights or license to Friday the 13th, to make some marketable masks or, things like that.
That's a good question. I don't know if maybe NECA has a monopoly on that. Well, they can't, because Mezco has stuff from them as well. It could be the lawsuit stuff going on right now,
Possibly.
and they're not open to new licensees. Time will tell. But then again, Cavity Colors, of course, does T-shirts all the time. Fright Rags does T-shirts all the time. I just don't think it's in the cards for Trick or Treat right now for some reason. God knows that they've probably tried. Of course they have. You don't try to get Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street stuff without trying to get Friday the 13th stuff. So yeah, I just think that it's not in the cards for them right now for that to happen. But I would not hold my breath if a year from now they start releasing hockey masks. Not at all. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Um, I'm sure, someday we'll. It's a possibility, but you never know if they could get the license. Um, as far as I know, since the lawsuit's so complex, not everyone has a huge understanding over it. Clearly, with as we all know, the ultimate New Blood Jason's slowly making its way to be released. At least that's some kind of closure that we're slowly starting to get merchandise back in some shape, way, or form. Um, I'm sure for August 13th we'll probably see a shirt from Cavity Colors, because they love to do their Jason shirts in celebration of a Friday the 13th weekend. We know where it's a limited release. If you order it, if you don't order it realistically, you miss out. Um, uh,
Paramount re-release. I was thinking to myself, well, surely that's going to come out on the 13th. No, it comes out on the 10th. But it does have those 4K scans of the first 4 movies, so that's something. So if people didn't buy the Scream Factory set and they did want to get some of those nice, beautiful transfers, which they do look nice, they can get those now. But they did drop the price even lower on Amazon, so it's down to 50 something
okay.
now, which I'm getting it. I don't need it, but I am a glutton. I love getting
Yeah, your physical media.
Blu-rays and stuff. So I'm absolutely gonna grab that. But just saying, it did drop even lower, because I was thinking to myself, there's no way they're charging $80 for that, because the tin box set was $80 and that thing was gorgeous.
Like, I'm fine with the old 2013 Blu-ray release that they did.
It's still a gorgeous set. I mean, there's funny things about it, like the girl from the remake being on the opening cover, but at the same time, though, dude, when you pull out that booklet and go through each page, I mean, they got really gorgeous pictures from those movies for that. So, like, for instance, there's only 2 possible explanations at what happened with this new artwork for this Paramount re-release Blu-ray box set. It's only 2 possible explanations. The first is some guy who has no idea about Friday the 13th just was like, okay, screw it, I'll design it. Or Kane Hodder designed it himself. Because it's all Kane Hodder and one part 2 head on the top left corner. Which, look, I like it. Sure, I love the New Blood. But apparently whoever designed it really likes the New Blood.
Yeah, they got one image of part 2 and then just three images of part 7, which I thought was really weird that they went with that. Like, you would think to have at least a combo, like, hey, you got part 2, part 3, maybe part 6, part 7, or part 9, or I'm so not 9 because it's 1 through 8. Sorry, like part 8 or something. Just have at least a little
yeah.
what I would like to call a little compilation of the Jasons? Why have just a bunch of part 7 and then just part 2? Like, that's really silly.
I mean, and I mean,
It's
look,
unique though.
it's so funny, but that's kind of goes in line with. It's almost poetic because if you look back at the physical releases of Friday the 13th, a lot of them have been quirky.
Yeah.
You've got your part 5, which has a red hockey mask on the cover. I'm talking about the original DVD
I have
release.
that.
Part 6 has has Roy Burns on the backside of it. So I mean, this isn't new, and even though it's wrong, I can't help but kind of get a little bit of charm from it because it's not new. It's happened a lot. It's like almost funny. There is a Blu-ray release, a steelbook of Friday the 13th. I think it's like a French release, and it's a dude holding a chain on the cover.
Yeah, it's this really weird like silhouette.
Right. This isn't a new thing. So it's kind of funny, but it's also, to me, I can't help but kind of dig that because it's always been off,
Yeah.
So why change anything now?
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of another release of part 1 where I think they have a picture of Jason's hockey mask on the cover. And it's like, what?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I could have sworn I might have saw it at Walmart once. If I could find a picture of it, I'll probably pop it up on screen. But I just like looked at it and I was like, really? Why am I not surprised? Any last words? Because I honestly think we had a pretty good run here. We had a pretty good run.
Any last words? I would say that if you're getting into collecting Friday the 13th, the first thing I really would tell you to do, considering there are so many entries in the franchise, is to really watch those films a number of times. Really see which one grabs you the most and start collecting from there. Because get everything you can from that movie, because what's going to happen if you're like me in a couple years, then you'll start to really love a different entry. And then you could start collecting more stuff from that entry. And it'll give you more longevity with your collecting as opposed to just trying to buy all different kinds of stuff at once from different entries. Like right now, I'm on a really big part 3 kick. So that's one that I'm really like excited. Like I've got a poster coming from part 3, but it's not the theatrical poster. It's the one where Jason's got an axe going through a window.
Oh, okay. I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm really on a part 3 kick right now, which is, I mean, great. Ready, let's part 3. And, maybe in a month from now, I'll get on a New Blood kick. But one thing's for sure. I'm always on a Jason Takes Manhattan kick.
Always, always.
That's my advice. That's my final thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing is as far as like ranking the movies. It always can change. Back and forth. But you could pick and choose between the movies because you just feel different about it every now and then. Especially in my case, within the past, I want to say few years, I've grown to love Jason X for some odd, weird reason. Just because it's such a over-the-top, silly movie that, doesn't take itself seriously. I love it for that. And then I always get those people that tell me that, oh, it's just a ripoff of Alien. And it's like, I know that.
Jason X knows exactly what it is.
Doing. Yeah.
You can't hate that. Plus, Uber Jason is amazing. I that is the most awesome look of Jason to me, period. I love Uber Jason so much. So
yeah, it's a really rad design. So with that, basically I'd like to say, Christian, thanks for coming along with the journey of this video. It may feel a little bit over the place a little bit, but I think it's fine. It was fun. It was fun chatting with you. So I'd like to, thank you for being a part of this. And basically, I'd like to thank all of you for watching. So don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to check Christian out on his YouTube channel because, I don't talk about this guy enough. So I'll see you. So I'll see you all next time, and hopefully, fingers crossed. July, August, the Ultimate Part 7. So See you all, guys. Nah, see you all. Why am I getting tongue tied? See you all next time, and yeah, have a good one.
Bye.